A colony of vultures flies over the Salto of Roldan. In the 8th century, the Lieutenant Charlemagne rode with his horse over the crags of Amman and San Miguel, escaping from the Muslim Saragossa. Actually, he was jumping over the deep cliff of limestones and rocks that have been provided for years by the river Flumen. This river has its source in the Sierra of Guara at 1,400 meters altitude, and it stops in reservoirs of Belsúa and Montaragón before it heals the plains of the pit of Huesca. Once it gets to the Ebro Valley, its mountain ecosystem derives in a river basin sprinkled with forests and meanders.
Once past Huesca, the Flumen meets the Izuela, keeping its meanders alive, despite flowing through places of great agricultural use. Towards the end, it converges with the Alcanadra below Sariñena, where it still has very interesting natural areas with very well-kept meanders.
The river Flumen has 120 kilometers of length. In the pit of Huesca, it collects the waters from its main tributary, the Izuela, and after passing Sangarren, it enters the region of Monegros. In this territory, their banks are a corridor of poplars, ash trees, aspens or willows we can see planted in the salines and clay soils that have been provided throughout its riverside. The Flumen's riversides cover 1,400 square kilometers, ending in the south of the Sierra of Jubierre, close to Albalatillo. At this point, the river Flumen joins the Alcanadre to draw a forest full of fauna and vegetation.
In short, it is a river that is still keeping its physical integrity throughout the length of its basin. Therefore, we should maintain these physical and biological values.
Under this philosophy, the Regional Board of Monegros has developed a project titled CREAMAgua, for which they request the support of the European Union. From the moment they requested, they already knew the main problem of the Flumen was the high percentage of nitrates and sediments in suspension found on the last sections of its riverbed, the pollution caused by the excess of the irrigated agriculture. With the scientific advice of the Pyrenean Institute of Ecology of the Center of Advanced Scientific Research, the Board of Monegros wanted to prove the interest of the local government to improve the environment and to show the efficiency of a methodology that naturally removes the polluted elements. In 2009, Brussels approved the Life CREAMAgua project.
That was a joyful moment for us, for we were chosen among 600 projects at national level. From those, only 26 were selected to be framed under the project Life Governance. And one of them was the Monegros one.
The LIFE programme is the financial instrument used by the European Union for the improvement of the environment. This programme was first established in 1992, and since then over 4,000 projects have been approved. Projects that came from public and private institutions with an expenditure of 3,400 million euros of community funds. Its main goal has always been to improve social welfare.
Life philosophy is to give financial support to innovative and demonstrative projects that solve environmental problems. That is Life's philosophy in short.
On October the 25th, 2012, Santiago Urquijo visited for the first time the works of the CREAMAgua project, focused on the creation and restoration of the aquatic ecosystems to improve the water quality and the biodiversity of the agricultural catchment. The project started its implementation in Monegros with a funding of 1.8 million euros. The implementation of the program started in Monegros in January 2011 to finish in December 2014. In those 4 years, they have worked over 609 hectares of ditches and riverbanks in order to create new dam aquatic areas, to restore riverside forests, and to show how the wetlands can decrease the amount of nitrates and phosphates arriving at the flumen. By doing this, the biodiversity is widely improved. This conservation strategy can be directly framed under one of the 3 sub-programs of Life European AIDS. While 2 of them are directly focused on biodiversity, communication and information projects, the third is called Life Environmental Policy and Governance, and its main purpose is to link all the interventions to the social and economic agents of the territory. The region of Monegros has achieved that goal.
El nombre es Life, Política Ambiental y Gobernanza.
The specific name of the program is Life, Environmental Policy and Governance. This name is related to a specific feature of governance we do not have in other environmental programs we are working with. Why? Because in this type of program, all the social agents who have some type of ruling capacity over the territory are involved.
Pues tienen esta componente de gobernanza.
At the end of the day, the important thing is that every component of the program has intervened to achieve the same goal, working all together. For when we all work towards the same goals, they are easier to achieve. And we should be thanking the councils, for they have worked wonderfully, making everything easier. We are working within the region of the Monegros, for they have had this initiative, an initiative, I must say, that has been very well received by councils and by the whole area indeed. What makes life governance so interesting? The possibility to have all the social agents agreeing to work together in an environmental program.
Interesados en un proyecto, pues puedan participar de una manera conjunta. Le da, digamos, un valor añadido a ese proyecto.
The region of Monegros is leading the Life Governance program. Its partners are the Ebro Water Confederation, the Monegros Studies and Research Institute, the Foundation for the Promotion of Youth and Sports in Monegros, and the companies KV Consulting and Traxa. The associates are the Pyrenean Institute of Ecology of the Center of Advanced Research, the Government of Aragon, the General Board for Irrigation in the High Aragon area, the agricultural trade unions Asaja and Uaga. They all work with the same purpose, to bring efforts together to achieve an environmental benefit. The creation of wetlands and the restoration of the riverbanks vegetation improves water quality, reduces agricultural nitrates and phosphates, and increases biodiversity. To achieve all this, the Life CREAMAgua project has created and restored several wetlands from the ditches, from the irrigated areas in Monegros to the riverbed. We can talk of 16 wetlands in the following municipalities: Albalatillo, Barbués, Capdesasso, Grañén, La Lueza, Poleñino, Sangarren, and Sariñena. Those places cover a flooding surface with a permanent sheet of water of 76.44 hectares in an influence area of 135.33 hectares and with a concession by the municipalities of 539 hectares of land. When restoring wetlands in these little cliffs, new vegetation of reeds, trees and plants together with certain microorganisms transform the nitrates into nitrogen gas that goes directly into the atmosphere. The first result for the green filters established a 50% decontamination of the agricultural nitrates, actually going into the river Flumen. These scientific results absolutely comply with the aims of the Life Governance program, which are that these supported projects become demonstrative ones in order to make their experiences exportable to other areas with similar problems.
Y la idea, los recursos son finitos, es que la
Bearing in mind we have limited resources, we need to use the LIFE programme as a catalyst in order to take these effective measures to solve environmental problems, to export them to other territories within Spain or other areas in the European Union with similar problems.
The programme Life from Agua is fully developed in the region of Monegros, being one of the largest regions in Aragon. Having 2,700 square kilometers, is one of the regions with the lowest demographic index in the whole of Europe. It only has 7.6 inhabitants per square kilometer, which turns it into a demographical desert. Its 20,000 inhabitants are divided among its 31 municipalities and its 49 population centers. The Sierra of Alcubierre is its most relevant geographical relief, and the Lake of Sariñena the most important ornithological reserve in Huesca. The ecosystem of this area is enriched with salines of Bujaraloz and the steppes that go directly to the Ebro's riverbed. Up in the north we can find the riverbeds of the Flumen and the Alcanadre joining the arable lands.
It is a very interesting region for the extraordinary variety of its landscapes and habitats. The north is pretty populated, having a big extension of arable lands, except for the mountains on the border of the region. We cannot find much of that in the south, though. And concerning the plain that falls towards the Ebro, we can find big extensions pretty well preserved.
Between dryland farming and irrigation, almost 81% of the territory of Monegros is dedicated to agricultural activities. Besides the winter cereal, in Monegros they practiced extensive farming using corn, rice and lucerne, very much appreciated in the international markets. Its high level of proteins is abundantly used in animal feeding, and so allows dehydration industries to export to foreign countries like the United Arab Emirates. The livestock production of pork, sheep and cows is a complement to the primary activity, a sector that represents 50% of the region economy.
The main livelihood is based on farming and livestock production. There is also a small percentage of the services sector. It is important to underline that they have a very modern and innovative primary activity in this region.
In this territory, agriculture wants to work with the proper environmental parameters. That is why the region of Monegros presented its project Life from Agua to the European Union, because they wanted to demonstrate that there is a possibility to reduce the impact of nitrates and phosphates in the Flumen. By doing so, the region would be able to maintain the primary activity without spoiling the health of the aquatic ecosystems.
Well, that was what our project is about. We wanted to combine agriculture, livestock production and the environment all together. To emphasize the importance of the environment in this region, we only have to show the 93,000 hectares protected by cepas and licks.
Following this philosophy, the first steps taken consisted of studying the Flumen waters. Its basin covers 1,400 square meters. It has got several dams on its high stretch, and its average flow is of 6 cubic meters per second on its final stretch. It does normally increase during the summer due to the farming runoff, that is from March to October, to be reduced again during the winter. After some specific storms, its flow can grow up to 20 to 30 cubic meters per second. During the farming months, all arable land gets activated by the irrigation system of the High Aragon that through the water canals of Cinca and Monegros provides water to 130,000 hectares between the provinces of Zaragoza and Huesca. A big part of this farming area goes directly to the Flumen waters, including all the nitrates and phosphates used during the agricultural campaign. And bearing in mind this river has a low flow in the summer, so these runoffs increase the polluted components in a very risky way.
The river itself is pretty muddy. This fact, added to the surplus of products caused by irrigation, as well as the erosion caused by all the particles in suspension in the water, makes life for plants very difficult. And these conditions affect fishes in the same way. If we bear in mind that the average weight of nitrates per litre goes up to 10 to 15 milligrams and goes up to 20 to 30 milligrams per litre for the solids in suspension, the only possible conclusion is that we need to reduce it so we can enrich the river, its basin and its banks.
Agriculture and livestock producers are also working to achieve this goal. Two of the collaborating partners are the biggest agricultural trade unions in Aragon, Asaja and Uaga Coag. When the amount of nitrates is excessive, the European Union establishes a restriction for the use of pesticides. These restrictions affect the profitability of corn-extensive farming. Besides, they must implement all the PAC regulation on the preservation of the river basins state.
In order to get financial support to invest in projects of rural development, it is necessary to comply with the Water Frame Directive. That, among other things, demands that water is returned to the river in the same state it is when we use it. Further to this, we must say, due to the fact that our work highly depends on water quality, we are very interested in its preservation. The agricultural trade unions are absolutely committed to the whole process, from the production to the environmental side of it, which means that our participation in a project like this, acting directly upon nitrogen and trying to extract it from the environment, is something completely positive.
Together with analysis of waters and their concentration of nitrates, during these 4 years the project CREAMAgua has also studied the state of the flumen banks and of all the ditches that flow into its riverbed.
We are now implementing the field campaign. Twice a year we work on obtaining standard samples. We, as a part of the project, do research in 2 different areas, the banks and the ditches.
Actuamos en 2 zonas distintas, una que es la zona de riberas y otra que son las zonas de los azarbes.
One of our sampling areas are the riverbank copses of the flumen located just beside Barbues. In the summer of 2012, the technicians of the Pyrenean Institute of Ecology of the Center for Advanced Scientific Research studied the vegetation associated with the riverside forests. The presence of willows, poplars and ash trees assures a good state of conservation compared to other more degraded areas. Another way to establish the health of the ecosystem is to find out the type of fauna that lives in it. On this occasion, the technicians mark out an area of 50 square centimeters. They cache the nets and they catch all the macroinvertebrates living on the riverbed. The presence of macroinvertebrates, insects, larvae and crustaceans are usual in these types of rivers. The variety of species shows the quality of water, so at this stretch of the river located near Barbues, the presence of the damselfly or Colobryx exole indicates that it maintains an acceptable environmental quality. As well as the fauna living in the river, the vegetation growing on its riverside banks is another bioindicator that shows us the water quality. With the help of their GPS, the technicians go to another area. It is a ditch located in Sangarren, which is collecting all the agricultural surplus and dumping them into the river. Just having a look around, the technicians check the type of vegetation existing there. Reed on the riverbed, grasses on the riverbanks, and ash trees and pear trees in the outer areas. The presence of these types of trees indicates a very good state of conservation. The Sangarren ditch is situated at the northern point of the territory in which the project CREAMAgua will be acting. It has been selected to be the first area to restore. It is going to be the first ditch to become a dam in order to create a green filter to absorb all the surplus coming from agriculture practices. The technicians of the Pyrenean Institute of Ecology of the Center of Advanced Scientific Research are carrying out critical research. These technicians get samples from the ground to put them into cylinders, sized 5 by 5 centimeters, to measure the concentration of phosphates and nitrates, as well as the grade of compaction of the ground, because the growing of vegetation depends on its structure and porosity.
What we do here is to measure the compaction of the ground, to which we use this instrument called penetrometer that gives us the resistance of the ground when we introduce it. It measures the resistance in newtons.
This type of data will be studied by the technicians in the laboratory. This data will be essential for the proper creation and restoration of wetlands. Two different types of interventions have been implemented. On one side, the off-stream wetlands created out of a natural net of drainage. That is what has happened in Sangarren, where a series of canals were built to collect the water held in a ditch in order to spread them in plains already incorporated to the project. The result of this are aquatic ecosystems rich in vegetation that contributes to the cleaning of nitrates. The second type are the in-stream wetlands, ditches that previously worked as filters of the farming runoffs, but that have been enlarged and reinforced with two specific purposes.
We intend to demonstrate the improvement of the water quality with the creation of wetlands, even before the water arrives at the rivers, by reducing the amount of nitrates, so the biodiversity gets improved as an inevitable consequence.
On December 2012, the creation of the biggest wetland in stream took place. That is to say, the enlargement of the ditch of Albalatillo, located in the most southern area of the CREAMAgua project's territory. Here, the enlargement consisted in erecting a wall of 1 meter high and a length between 12 and 70 meters, depending on the stretch of the river. Every stretch of the wall has a spillway protected by a stone gabion to reinforce the ditch and to leave the water running to the flumen. A total amount of 7 hectares of wetland have been created in this area. The aim of the interventions is to minimize the impact on the landscapes and to maintain the natural structures of the rivers. This has been the main goal of Traxa and associated to the CREAMAgua project.
Traxa is a public enterprise and the instrument for the Ebro Water Confederation within the project. Our main task is to create new wetlands and to restore the old ones to reduce the amounts of nitrates in the flumen. The most innovative asset of this project is to establish the amount of pollution contained in the rivers, and even more in an area like this.
The works of creation and restoration of aquatic ecosystems ended at the beginning of 2013. In the municipality of Sariñena, a total amount of 19 hectares of wetlands were created. These are the ditches located on the last stretch of the flumen, where the pollution is especially high.
Aquí en Sariñena hemos tenido 4 actuaciones en lo que son la parte de humedales.
The number of interventions in Sariñena have been 4 at the wetland level and 6 at the riverbank level. The usual area of intervention are the ditches or the main tributaries of the flumen. With all these interventions, we are improving the natural environment by reducing the pesticides in the water. With these new filters, the water quality is far better.
Los aportes de nutrientes procedentes muchas veces de granjas o de tratamientos agrícolas, normalmente fertilizantes.
The wetlands have been built in the lands belonging to the public hydraulic domain, and the owners are the town councils, the Ebro Water Confederation, and the government of Aragon, including plots of the agricultural heritage of Aragon. With 2 exceptions, the one in Albalatillo, the other is the wetland located in the properties of the common property of the neighboring inhabitants of Pallaruelo of Monegros. Here again, there is a construction with the spillways protected with the stone gabions to dam more than 6 hectares all throughout the ditch. These interventions of the Life CREAMAgua have been possible thanks to the voluntary transfer of the territories of the farmers who owned them.
El modelo de gestión aquí es una comunidad de bienes, que es una sociedad.
This management system is based on a common property established from time immemorial. All the neighbours of the village belong to this sort of association, and all of them are the landowners. So, from the town council, we can only support the initiative.
Estamos apoyando toda esta serie de iniciativas.
At the end of the summer 2012, the results of the works could be observed from the air. This wetland, located close to La Lueza, was one of the first to be built. Extraction had 7 spillways to create artificial lakes and to dam the waters arriving at the flumen. After a few months of its construction, the first groups of reed started to appear. The first objective of the program was achieved.
Our project is based most of all on the creation of wetlands that work as what we call green filters. The main asset of wetlands is the fact that the water is steady, and that helps to clean up the solids in suspension, as well as the pesticides and the plant protection products that come from irrigation farming.
Los pesticidas y fitosanitarios que vienen de la escorrentía agrícola.
In the summer of 2012, it was still possible to see through the green filter of reeds, while in the next year the vegetation grew exponentially in a natural way. By doing this, the biological activity was incremented so much that we could find plants, macroinvertebrates, algae and microorganisms able to diminish the solids in suspension and the nitrates and phosphates proceeding from agriculture. In June 2014, the wetland in La Lueza represented a wealthy state of vegetation. By then, the wetland was a natural wastewater treatment plant of the runoff of the flumen that was not only able to filter nitrates and phosphates sent into the atmosphere, but pesticides also.
Conseguimos, gracias al hecho de embalsar, que se crea una.
We created a toxic sheet under the water where the bacteria metabolize all the polluted components to clean up the pesticides in the river.
Componentes que vienen. Entonces, nos aprovechamos.
It's a process by which nitrates get transformed into nitrogen gas. This nitrogen gas goes directly into the atmosphere, which is very rich in nitrogen per se. So we are not causing any damage to the atmosphere. On the contrary, we are cleaning the river more effectively.
Entonces no creamos ningún efecto perjudicial, sino casi al contrario. Y esto permite limpiar todavía más un poco el río.
We have built more wetlands in order to hold the irrigation water a little more, so the solids in suspension can sediment to eliminate nitrates and other components.
The La Lueza ditch is the natural drainage of a farming subbasin with a high amount of nitrates. Surrounded by lands dedicated to the extensive farming like corn, rice and lucerne. Its restoration as a wetland helps to reduce the turbidity of agricultural excess. Usual practices from April to October, a period in which the use of pesticides increase very much. This happens in the middle of the farming campaign. The strategic position of flumen allows these interventions to develop a natural way of cleansing all the waste that comes to this stretch of the river. A minimally invasive intervention was an important asset for the restoration of the wetlands, in order to cause little impact on the landscape. The design of these constructions have been developed by the companies KV Consulting and Traxa, both associated with the Life CREAMAgua project. Javier, the technical director, decided to avoid the artificial elements in the constructions to promote the regeneration of the ecosystems restored.
Fundamentalmente, el objetivo de KV dentro de este
What we
proyecto
are essentially doing is to apply engineering solutions to the scientific knowledge of the situation shown by the PA. After that, we have to adapt them to a building project within a viable budget. We apply our engineering experience, and in return, we acquire a huge amount of new knowledge to export to other territories in the country.
Proyectos de ingeniería similares realizados en entornos fluviales y a la vez poder adquirir conocimientos que nos puedan valer para poderlos extrapolar a otras áreas del territorio español.
On April the 26th, 2013, the end of restoration of wetlands and riverbank works was celebrated. A visit of partners and associates with the Life CREAMAgua project was held so they could check all the interventions developed. The tour started in Sangarren, where a network of winding canals can collect the water of a ditch of the Flumen, and then they flood it into an area of 14 hectares of land.
This is positive for agriculture in two senses. Firstly, because we improve the image of the farmers as protectors of the environment, and secondly, these interventions help us to avoid the red lines, that is to say, to avoid the risky levels of pollution, so we can maintain farming practices and we can also improve them. This project will serve as a pilot project to be used in other territories. Bearing in mind the enormous possibilities we have in Aragon concerning the usual irrigation farming practices, this project needs to be promoted well by the agricultural sector.
Es importante que se conozca, importante trasladarlo a la hora de elaborar otros proyectos que sin duda alguna se están poniendo en marcha.
The tour continued in Barbués and La Lueza, with all the partners and associates. In Cap de Sasso, 45 hectares of land were incorporated to the project. These works improve the benefits for the villages involved.
Here, everything revolves around agriculture. This benefits the village because it eliminates the waste and the water is clean, so problems are reduced. Obviously, anything that can reduce the pollution level will be great for us. Pollution is the principal concern of farmers, so the project is very important for us. Agriculture up here is a very profitable project. Since we have these green filters, we can control pollution much better. And in the same way, agriculture on the lower stretch of the river will be done with cleaner water. Our livelihood is agriculture. We have already had lots of discussions concerning the contamination of waters in the territory so far. We have come to realize that we should provide the necessary hectares for the project in order to have cleaner water and to combine farming with environmental care.
The tour finishes on the restored wetlands in Albalatillo and Pallaruelo. During these 4 years, there also were interventions on the riverside forests of the Flumen as a very important part of the Life CREAMAgua project. From the summer of 2011 until the beginning of 2013, a total of 70 hectares of riverside have been ecologically restored in 19 different areas throughout the river. 8 different municipalities were the owners of the land: Albalatillo, Almuniente, Barbués, Grañén, La Lueza, Torres de Barbués, Sangarren and Sariñena. The main target was to increase the vegetation biodiversity and to rejuvenate the forest by improving the natural regeneration of the habitats of the Flumen, a method to be endorsed by the CASR.
Concerning the riverside forests, the process starts renewing its natural structure as well as the biodiversity in some stretches of the Flumen. The samples enable us to see the species that are not well represented, so we simply decide to reforest the area.
CREAMAgua has reforested 17.5 hectares with a total amount of 5,243 plants. In 2013, the Biodiversity Foundation distinguished the region of Monegros with some funds to restore part of this region. The public company Monegros Environmental Services help in this activity. In Sangarren, they planted willows, poplars, black poplars, ash trees and hackberries, and also plants like espartos, wild roses and lilies. They used a very innovative and modern method during this reforestation process, a method that helps to make a more random and natural reforestation. The Matical of Sariñena represents one of the most important reforestation done on the Flumen riversides so far. It has 167 feet density of plants per hectare. In this specific area, new canals have been built in order to flood the whole plain and therefore to enlarge the forest surface up to 8 hectares. A method that allows a natural regeneration within 10 or 20 years. The main target in this case is to accelerate the settlement of new species and to give continuity to the riverside forests. In Barbués, they have already had a very well preserved forest, even though the trees and plants they have planted have regenerated and enlarged the meander up to 2 hectares more. In some other more degraded areas, technicians have decided to diminish the reinforcement of the dam in order to incorporate new riverbank areas. With this type of reforestation, the spread of seeds is improved to increase the biodiversity of the river Flumen. The creation of new wetlands and the improvement of the riverbanks makes the nesting of birds much easier, and it directly relates it to the aquatic ecosystems. In the areas intervened by the CREAMAgua project, a total amount of 200 species have been listed. We can talk about cranes, royal garthas, common garthas and imperial garthas, and some other smaller birds like the anadas, cercetas and ralidos. We can hear through the vegetation the singing of some birds among the reeds and the singing of some bigger ones like the marsh harrier.
We need to thank all the leading institutions who are involved in the project for being able to incorporate 500 more hectares of wetlands to improve the biodiversity in this area. Now, behind me, the cameraman may record the sound of several birds. Life is emerging, and that is very positive.
During all the process of implementation of the Project Life CREAMAgua, several awareness and informative activities have been developed. They have always been aimed at children, students and farmers. Some of these activities are guided visits, exchange of experiences, seminars and pedagogical workshops. Activities, the number of which was increased just after conclusion of works. The instructors of the Foundation for the Promotion of Youth and Sports in Monegros were well informed about the restored ditches. An essential step to prepare the divulgative activities for the students of primary and secondary level. In La Lueza, they could personally check the importance of flooding the plains with secondary canals to make the vegetation emerge spontaneously.
Come here and see. This you can see here, it's a bud, okay? These are plant cells. They are already prepared for when the water comes, a moment in which they will swell and will have a stem.
The Foundation for the Promotion of Youth and Sports have prepared a lot of activities for students of primary and secondary education in Monegros. They also prepared didactic materials to teach them about the project. On May the 31st, 2013, they had a special activity. They got to know lots of the species living in the water as well as the inhabitants of the riverside forests of the Flumen. The didactic material explains in a pedagogical way the biodiversity of the Flumen and its connection with a comic called The Adventures of Martin Creamin, the project's pet.
We have created some comics in which the star is Martín Creamín, a kingfisher, who is explaining in a funny way what the project life means, what has happened with it in their region, and what are the things they have done in the Flumen.
In some other villages, the activities were aimed at children and adults. The neighbors of Albalatillo understood how the Flumen's ecosystem works and how important it is to maintain its riverbed clean of phosphates and nitrates. We can see in the clean water the tadpole Renato or the fish Lopez living peacefully, considering they are the kingfisher's favorite food. All this didactic material, plus a series of radio programs made by the children, can be downloaded from the website www.CREAMAgua.com.
Martin, we need your help. The Flumen water is getting dark. Those living under the surface will drown because of the lack of oxygen. The riverbed is full of algae and plants. Wow, Homero, I'm sure what you're telling me has to do with our enemy nitro. He is a pesticide that encourages vegetables and algae to grow in disorder on the riverbed. And what is the solution, Martin? We'd better call the project Live CREAMAgua because it creates wetlands.
During the summer, we were working with the children in primary school in order to make some auditions to record several programs so we can have different chapters from the story and the characters living in the river.
Within the project Live CREAMAgua, other activities were designed for the students of secondary education. The high school students from Grañén, Bujaraloz and Sariñena went to visit one of the most iconic works, which is the wetland in Barbués. Here the works were focused on the recovering and conservation of 2 hectares of riverside forests by making an artificial dam with a ditch in that area. It was a comprehensive experience for the students.
Well, we have been visiting the wetlands and we met all the different types of animals and plants living in it. There were reeds, ash trees, algae and all types of plants.
Algas había fresnos y todo tipo de plantas.
This trek took place in December 2013. They had to write about the flora and the fauna in the wetland as a complementary activity to the trek. They had to talk about the smells, sounds and sensations this riverside forest left on them. An experience that forced them to value in a proper way the importance of having a clean riverbed.
We are doing some work about what we felt and smelled and experienced visiting the wetland. I think all this is a good idea because we can recover the fauna in the river Flumen.
After introducing this project to students of primary and secondary education, it has also been introduced to university students. On the 25th of April 2014, the students of countryside analysis in the environmental science degree were taken to the wetland in La Lueza. An experience led by José Miguel Castillejo, researcher for the Center of Advanced Scientific Research and professor in the University of Zaragoza.
This is a very special experience for all the students because they are having a practical lesson in which they can implement all that they have already seen on their theoretical studies.
All the students come from the college campus of Huesca. According to Gerardo, coming here is great because after the visit I have understood the qualities of the project Live CREAMAgua.
Using these wetlands as a green filter is useful for controlling the surplus of agriculture and livestock with a large amount of nitrates and phosphates that go into the river afterwards.
All this information has also been explained to the farmers of the region all throughout the process. One of the main goals of the Live CREAMAgua project is to improve the water quality to make agriculture and the environment compatible. Among the several informative activities aimed at the farmers, we can find different meeting days organized and participated in by the two big agricultural trade unions of the province of Huesca that also are collaborating parties with the project, that is to say, WAGA, COAC and ASAJA. One of these talks took place on March the 14th, 2013 in the Cinema El Molino in Huesca.
Nowadays we are really concerned with nitrate pollution in the rivers. We have some areas in the low Cinca and in the pit of Huesca that might be declared vulnerable areas due to the pollution of nitrates. We must bear in mind this is a river with a pretty low flow, which means that depending when we take the samples, we might get a very high level of pollution, probably exceeding European limits. And so the European Union can declare these areas vulnerable ones. This would have very important consequences for farmers, like the increasing of bureaucratic work or the fact they might have some penalties from the Union, like the prohibition of dumping pig slurry into the river.
These restrictions would directly affect the economic yields of farmers. This is why these informative and awareness activities have been so important for farmers and cattle owners, because they must be aware they have to maintain the riverbed in proper conditions. If the water pollution reaches risky limits, the European Union will establish certain restrictions, for example, forbidding the use of pesticides for the corn culture. The implementation of this European directive was an issue of great interest for farmers of the agricultural cooperative of Monegros, the biggest agribusiness of the region.
I have always said that farmers and agriculture must work hand in hand with the environment. At the end of the day, farmers are the biggest defenders of the environment because they have made all kinds of investments to improve their irrigation system. Therefore, they are very interested in promoting any kind of environmental measures, enabling them to have an affordable livelihood. We want to keep living through agriculture in Monegros.
El agricultor, en muchísimos casos, por no decir en casi todos,
in the majority of cases, farmers are the biggest defenders of the environment. If the environment is polluted, agriculture is not working properly. So the biggest damage is for farmers and agriculture.
La propia agricultura, con lo cual el agricultor siempre hemos tenido conciencia en esos temas medioambientales.
This project has tried to increase awareness in order to have a proper environment not only within the region's population, but within every sector of population in general terms. In every village in Monegros where works have been taking place, the goal of promoting and divulging the project has also been implemented by giving talks and showing itinerant exhibits. The project Live CREAMAgua has been explained and shown in multiple forums, environmental conferences and fairs. In May 2012, they celebrated a satellite event at the Grand Week in Brussels that was attended by students from Monegros, Sobrarbe and Somontano. The next year, another satellite event and the Grand Week took place, and in that occasion they explained the experiences of 10 live projects that are being implemented in other points of the country. In September 2014, the Scientific Society of Wetlands of Europe organized the annual congress with the following title: Biodiversity and Services in Wetlands, Tools for Social and Ecological Development. These conferences have been widely followed in the media. During these 4 years of implementation of the Live CREAMAgua project, every kind of media has been interested: the digitals, the press, the audiovisuals and the specialized publications too. Articles about the project have been published in national and international media, and some of them have been published in specialized publications. In May 2014, the APIA, Journalists Association for Environmental Information, visited the working areas. A total amount of 12 professionals of different media sectors.
One of the most important goals for environmental journalists is to find valuable issues to avoid always speaking about the same thing or from the same point of view. So this project shows so many different angles to be explained that we could not let it go.
On May 26, 2014, Santiago Urquijo, Technical Director for the projects under the program Live Gobernanza, paid his second visit to the areas of intervention to check the achievement of the initial objectives. During these 4 years, 16 wetlands have been created to reduce the pollution and the components that get into the river Flumen. More than 5,000 plants belonging to 16 different vegetation species have also been planted to improve the biodiversity, the structure and the spreading of seeds. That was the moment to study the results, something essential in a demonstration project.
We can be satisfied, for we have achieved the two main goals of this project, which were to reduce the contamination of nitrates and phosphates and to increase the biodiversity. As well as this, we have demonstrated its efficiency as a demonstration project.
The results also tell us about a decontamination of 50% of nitrates from the sub-basins that have been intervened. This means wetlands are working as a wastewater treatment plants for the farming runoffs dumped into the Flumen. Figures that will be improving as the ecosystems themselves improve.
We can now see 50% of all the amount of nitrates, not only the amount of nitrates dumped into the river at the beginning of the process, but the quality multiplied by its flow is held within the wetlands. It is a logical process, because when the water is steady, the solids in suspension settle down on the bottom. Once there, the nitrates start a biogeochemical process in which, with the help of certain plants and microorganisms, they change into gas, and they are released into the atmosphere where they can stay in an endless deposit. We are very happy with those results, for they prove the water, even with surplus dumped into the Flumen, has 50% less nitrates than it had before passing the green filters. We have increased the biodiversity of species, not only with the works implemented in wetlands, but also with the interventions made in the riverside forests. We have proved this project reduces the amount of nitrates and solids to improve the biodiversity of the basin. We have also proved that with the help of microorganisms that improvement can be spread throughout all the basin. So we, the Regional Board of Monegros and the Ebro Hydrographic Confederacy, believe this LIFE project is exportable to other areas of its basin and even to other hydrographic basins in Spain, because the main goal to achieve with this type of project is to improve the water quality, which is also the main goal under the Water Frame Directive of the European Union.
These results show the benefit for the territories we will leave as a legacy. Flying over the wetland of Sangarren, a flock of cranes is looking for a night shelter. A marsh harrier flies over the cane and the reed fields. During these years, more than 200 species of birds have been listed as living in wetlands and riverbanks restored, which is a vital indicator of the presence of habitats for the wildlife. Thanks to the CREAMAgua project, farming and cattle are two more sustainable activities.
El principal motor económico de esta comarca es la agricultura.
Agriculture is the economic engine of this area. Farming and the environment always go hand in hand. And with these interventions, the farmers have shown themselves to be great protectors of the environment.
Que muchas veces se ha puesto en duda y la verdad es que no es así.
Estamos demostrando que se pueden en estos territorios tan
we have proved that the uniform farming practices used in these territories can be combined with a restored environment by creating and restoring wetlands in degraded areas and improving biodiversity, which is an added value to the territory.
Que mejoran la calidad del agua y mejoran la biodiversidad, que es un valor añadido para el conjunto del territorio.
In 2013, the project LIFE CREAMAgua won the award in the 6th CONAMA Prix to the Sustainability for Small and Medium Villages held in Granada. The award was given in the category of territories between 5,000 and 30,000 inhabitants. This award distinguishes the best local initiatives for the promotion of sustainability, and which is organized by the Foundation CONAMA and sponsored by the Provincial Deputation of Granada, with the collaboration of the Biodiversity Foundation of the Minister of Agriculture, Feeding and the Environment. In 2014, the project CREAMAgua received the Environment Award of the Government of Aragon. Recognitions received after 4 years for a demonstrative project for this and other territories.
La filosofía LIFE siempre es la misma desde su inicio en el año 92.
Since the beginning of the program in 1992, the LIFE philosophy has always been the same: to give financial support to innovative projects or to demonstrative ones. Ultimately, to those prepared to test new techniques and methodologies dedicated to solve environmental problems. And the fact of working in the same direction, not only to implement the project, but to make it have a continuity in time, is a special feature in which we are especially interested.
A project where all the components are already involved. A project where all the components are already involved. The improvement of the Flumen's water mark a new horizon for the region of Monegros. During these 4 years, the representatives of the regional board, the mayors of the different municipalities and farmers have worked hand in hand with the government of Aragon, the Ebro Water Confederation, public and private companies and scientists of the PIECASC. They have all believed in leaving a more sustainable and cleaner legacy. A common project called CREAMAgua, which is a quality mark for this river that communicates plains with mountains. From the Pyrenees to the steppes of Monegros, the Flumen is a corridor of emerging life. It's the mark of a sustainable Europe that believes in the rural world, for the quality and preservation of rivers that can contribute to its development.